Hey guys, it's Steve. Hope you guys are enjoying. This is Magneto issue 12. He is here presenting. It's been quite a different kind of comics. Anyone who has ever dared to debate a creationist or argue with someone on an internet message board knows that most people will go to any length to avoid admitting they're wrong. It's probably the most painful act any person can do that doesn't involve a lawyer. Sometimes the mere thought of being wrong is so traumatic that some people will practically lobotomize themselves to avoid even considering it. That obsessive aversion to avoid such painful admission embodies many of the defining traits that make someone a villain. From Satan to Donald Trump, it's a mentality that has spanned generations, civilizations, and culture. This is what makes the concept of an inversion, as it has been defined in the ongoing events of Avengers and X-Men Axis, so intriguing. It's easy for a hero to become a villain. For the same reason, it's easier to blow up a house than it is to build one. But for a villain to become a hero, they have to confront their flaws and actually admit that they are wrong on some levels. They might as well be performing open heart surgery on themselves. This dramatic realization hasn't been explored that much in Avengers and X-Men Axis. However, the events of Magneto issue 12 that tie into this story offer insight into the actual process of this inversion, and the process, it turns out, is even more profound than the results. In terms of the bigger picture, the story itself doesn't reveal much more than what was already shown in the earlier events of Avengers and X-Men Axis. That's not to say it's a glorified and flashback. These events are given a different, more personal perspective by Magneto as he's battling the Red Skull and the Sentinels. That's not to say it's not explosive and visceral either. There's certainly no shortage of stories that have Magneto fighting Nazis and Sentinels. That has been the subject of at least half of his stories. What makes the struggle meaningful is how it establishes Magneto prior to the inversion. He identifies himself as a villain. He associates himself with the team of villains he assembled to defy the Red Skull. He sees his part in this attack and that of his fellow villains as a strategy. The Red Skull probably always works under the assumption that the Captain Americas of the world will attack him at some point. He's not nearly as likely to assume that a team of villains would attack. It would be like showing up to a gang war wearing clown costumes. The concept alone is so brazen that it leaves the other side too shocked. Magneto and his team of villains stop short of putting on clown makeup, but their attack does the job from both a strategic and conceptual standpoint. Magneto is still a villain. He's just a villain who has a grudge against Nazis and guys who rip out the brains of his deceased friends. But beyond being a villain, the story also reestablishes the decades-old divisions between Magneto and Charles Xavier. Now, even though these divisions have been revisited more than a Simpsons rerun, it adds another dimension to the conflict that goes beyond labeling the guys superheroes regularly beat up. That's a bit of a nice thing. Magneto's villains only party continues here in issue 12. The finds working in steadily tandem to take down the still standing Red Onslaught. That's a different thing, but it's also continuing in the story. But they also bog the book down some, especially with secondary characters popping in and out at random. That said, Bunn smartly focuses on furthering his own story over that of Axis in general, using an intriguing mental meeting to gain some much needed narrative momentum. Visually, Roland Bushy turns in some solid page work, his sharp hatching further heightened by Lee Lowbridge's vibrant colors. There are some instances where facial characteristics differ from panel to panel, but by and large, Magneto stands as one of the more worthy Axis chef. It's a final score of IGN is 7.6. That is really different because it's worth it, at least 7.6. It looks good. In terms of the bigger picture, the story itself doesn't reveal much more than what was already shown in the early events of Avengers and X-Men Axis. That's not to say it's a glorified flashback. Yeah, this is what should I say about this one? That it's just a different view from the view of Magneto. The incidents are going on same ways. He identifies himself as a villain. He associates himself with the team of villains he assembled to defy the Red Skull. He sees his part in this attack and that of his fellow villains as a strategy. The Red Skull probably always works under the assumption that the Captain Americas of the world that I said. So while Magneto's relationship with Charles Xavier and the X-Men has been complicated over the years to the point of absurdity. He has still never once admitted that he was wrong. He still thinks Charles Xavier is crazy to think that mutants and humans could live in peace. A flashback with him shows it's kind of different. So hope you guys will enjoy. Just go to the store and buy it. Yes, this is the shaking time. To be continued, and just leave a like.